for 2020 open. And note a full attendance of councillors and of the executive team, therefore there are no apologies. As a matter of process, I do ask if there are any declarations of interest with the matters enclosed in the budget papers. Thank you, councillors. There being no declarations, I'll move straight into now, with a little bit of help from sorting out technology. I'd like to do my introductory speech for the 2020-21 budget. Good morning, councillors, executive and members of the public and media with us today via our digital gallery. On behalf of all councillors, it is my pleasure to present the 2020-2021 Scenic Rim Regional Council budget to our community for adoption by council. This is the first budget of this new term of council, and one that has been formulated against a challenging background of sequential disaster events, culminating with the current COVID-19 pandemic, and is a budget that is for the whole of the Scenic Rim. I'd like to acknowledge the diligent approach of the councillors as we prepared this budget together. With changes in legislation, council budgets are required to be developed and approved collectively by the elected council. While this council has adopted that approach previously, I'm pleased this is now reflected in the legislation. I also acknowledge and thank the executive and employees of council for their ardent efforts in preparing the supporting materials and operational detail to inform the decision-making of council so effectively. Finding the right balance between the conflicting goals of meeting increasing community expectations, ensuring we meet our commitments to sustainable asset renewal, and maintaining financial sustainability as a council, while mitigating impacts across our communities, are always at the core of our deliberations. This budget shows the benefits of robust planning and analysis, clarity of prioritisation through strategic focus, and commitment to sustainable service delivery and good governance. Councillors, the budget we are considering today gives sharp focus to the immediate circumstance across our region, keeping revenue growth from the general rate and community infrastructure charge to just 0.89% or $440,000 across all categories, plus a projected 1.5% growth in new rateable contributions. However, we will also continue to build on our core commitments to sustainable service delivery, continue our strategic focus on the renewal of our key public spaces, provide strong support for economic and further employment growth and diversity. We are responsibly budgeting for a total expenditure of $87.3 million, inclusive of $22.4 million for capital investment. This is some $11.6 million down from last year's budget of $98.9 million. Councillors, our decisions to maintain services while holding revenue growth to less than half of CPI will see us budgeting for a deficit of $1.43 million. I am pleased that we have a highly competent and committed team led by CEO John Gibbons, who will work fervently and wisely to pursue pragmatic savings to offset some of this impact as the year progresses. Over the past few years, Council has grappled with the ongoing impact of significant valuation increases for some areas and land use types within the region. This has created extremes of variation in valuation across the region and led to some significant concerns about levels of contribution in some quarters. This year, we've received a further round of valuations and will be averaging individual property valuation increases from these over a 2-year window. This year will see a stepped increase to community infrastructure charge from $322 to $372 per rateable property. However, this will be offset by a reduction in minimum general rate and rate in the dollar to meet the total revenue outcome already discussed as a result of an increase of just 0.89%. We believe this rebalance between these two components on your rates notice further helps to mitigate the impacts of extreme valuation movements over time. Most rates categories will see capped minimum net general rates and community infrastructure charge increases of just 1%. Owner-occupied residential land on the previous minimum rate saw $1,215 as the general rate, plus $322 as community infrastructure charge, or a total of $1,537 annually. This year, owner-occupied residential land on the minimum rate will see $1,180 as the general rate, plus $372 for the community infrastructure charge, bringing the total to $1,552, which is an increase of just 1%. The rate in the dollar for owner-occupied residential land will reduce by 9.2% from 0.7975 cents in the dollar to 0.7240 cents in the dollar. More than 59%, over 11,100 residential properties, including principal and non-principal place of residence land, will see less than 1% increases in their net rates and charges for the 2020-21 year. Similarly, the net increase for rural principal place of residence land on the minimum rate will be 1%. This will see the minimum net rates and community infrastructure charge for rural principal place of residence land increase by $17 from $1,654 to $1,671. More than 52% of rural principal place of residence properties will see a less than 1% net increase. Further, the rate in the dollar for these properties will reduce a further 10.5% from 0.6875 cents in the dollar to 0.6154 cents in the dollar. The only borrowings proposed for this year's budget is $1.5 million, which is a strategic land purchase on Lupton Road in Beaudesert that is earmarked for a sporting precinct to serve the high population growth expected for Beaudesert in the future. Our budget also benefits from and recognises co-investment from the Queensland and Australian governments for a number of projects, both operational and capital. These include the ongoing Regional Skills Investment Strategy, the appointment of a Resilience Project Officer, the Beaudesert Business Park, Beaudesert Town Centre Revitalisation, Roads to Recovery, and the Bridges Renewal Program. This year, the region will also benefit from Queensland and Australian government grants to support recovery from bushfires and drought, as well as the economic impacts of COVID-19. This includes the Queensland Government's Works for Queensland COVID-19 Recovery Package Unite and Recover Community Stimulus Program, and the Australian Government's Local Road and Community Infrastructure Program. We are fortunate to have received funding for a Community Development Officer who will play a vital role in our bushfire impacted communities that need ongoing long-term support to recover and build resilience into the future. Council has enjoyed exceptional success through both Queensland and Australian government grant programs in recent years. This is a positive testament to our improving ability to plan well, demonstrate strong business cases, and execute these to deliver the strong community outcomes sought by all levels of government. Currently, we are anticipating that for the 2020-21 year, these capital and operating grants will collectively bring $17.66 million to our region. While some of these grants come off the back of very challenging disasters, they enable us to deliver programs and projects that reduce the burden on our ratepayer revenue and our ratepayers. I am optimistic that we will enjoy further support from Queensland and Australian government funding programs as this year progresses. For the most part, fees and charges have been kept at zero increase, or in some cases reduced as a result of process improvements and reviews. Within today's budget, I can confirm that for normal domestic wheelie bin services, the annual fee will have a modest increase of $11 per annum to $383 per annum. For domestic users who do not have a bin collection service, however pay a waste disposal fee, the figure will also increase a modest $4 per annum to $138 per annum. This reflects the Queensland Government's full rebating of the cost of the waste levy applicable to domestic curbside waste collection at this time. However, The applicable rates for commercial operators for curbside collection have increased to incorporate a 3% increase in council's cost to serve, so that the new annual fee for a commercial curbside wheelie bin will be $293.50 from the 1st of June to the 31st of December 2020, and $295.50 from the 1st of January to 30th of June 2021. This reflects the Queensland Government's decision to defer increasing applicable deemed allocation of the state waste levy until January 2021. I must stress that it is not discretionary for council to apply that levy for commercial waste. Rather, it is mandated by the Queensland Government. I would reiterate that while I acknowledge there is clearly some pain in the waste levy for commercial operators, I believe the long-term goal to be more responsible stewards of the whole life cycle of our existence is widely shared across our community, which has been keen to embrace recycling. A key program of work this year will be the development of our long-term waste management strategy to meet future expectations. While the new fees and charges schedule, which is being adopted today for the current financial year, reflects relatively low increases, the new charges won't actually apply until the 1st of August 2020, giving ratepayers across the community a couple of months reprieve. I attest that this is a fiscally responsible budget. We've committed to retain current services and service levels under a challenging revenue environment. During COVID-19, we had to invent new ways of doing things to adapt to the public health requirements. This has seen efficiencies in the way we operate and deliver some of our services and programs to our communities. And we expect that some of these changes may be embedded into our future way of operating. Achieving organisational efficiencies and service delivery improvements are the cornerstones of our ongoing Refresh and Refocus program, and our commitment to providing our customers with an enhanced experience when dealing with council. I know the CEO will be talking more about some of these operational efficiencies and savings that we are making in more detail in his speech, so I'll leave it at that for now. Council's 2020-21 budget provides $295,000 for our new look community grants program. This intends to combine sport and active recreation grants with community grants to provide a wider range of funding opportunities for not-for-profit organisations across the region. We recognise the value in providing financial and in-kind assistance to local organisations, which rely heavily on volunteers who give so generously of their time and devote much of their energy to making a difference to their communities. And for that, we sincerely thank you. The new Community Grants program takes into account the needs of our rural and regional townships, where community and sporting groups often share the same facilities and have common goals. As part of our focus on efficiencies, we will be streamlining the application process to an online grants management platform. The days of paper-based applications will be gone, and this provides more efficiencies for both council and for our grant applicants. We will continue our investment of $90,000 to maintain the expanded 12-month Be Healthy and Active program, which last year included 65 health and wellbeing activities delivered by 42 Scenic Rim businesses and community organisations in 17 towns and villages across the region. It is not only the participants who have enjoyed the social connections and friendships they have formed through Be Healthy and Active. This program is an opportunity for our local health and wellbeing providers and community organisations to raise their profile, all while helping to create a healthier and connected community. Investing in the region's conservation to enhance some of the region's most valuable natural assets, its spectacular scenery and pristine environment also features in today's budget. Our key industries of tourism and agriculture depend on the maintenance of the ecological balance, which our $103,000 environmental grants program, in conjunction with our biodiversity strategy, will help to support. In addition to the environmental grants program, Council's 2020-21 budget provides $50,500 for the Million Trees program, which aims to plant 1 million native trees throughout the Scenic Rim by 2025. Over the coming year, we will continue our strong focus on delivering on the commitments of our Scenic Rim Regional Prosperity Strategy 2020 to 2025. The Scenic Rim's first ever 5-year strategy has a primary goal of creating valuable jobs for our local people. Against our challenging backdrop, supporting economic growth and creating local jobs is more critical than ever for our region, for our people. We know there are those across our communities who are hurting and who have lost their jobs and businesses, and we are working hard to support those people. Partnering for prosperity with our key industries, local businesses and other levels of government is key to supporting our region's economic recovery during this challenging time. Council has a key role to facilitate economic growth. However, we need to work collectively and collaboratively as one Scenic Rim to generate prosperity for our region. As a council, we have made a clear and conscious mandate to purchase locally where possible to support our local businesses and help them to achieve the economic outcomes that they work so hard for, and which provide, of course, flow-on benefits to our communities. In the last quarter, we have paid $7.4 million to local suppliers through a disciplined approach to our procurement practices and a determined focus as part of our first economic stimulus package in response to COVID-19. This equates to 36% of Council's expenditure and is a notable step up from our previous annual percentage of 29%. Of course, there are always expenses that are outside of the region that we can't control, such as energy, telecommunications, taxes and superannuation costs. We are transparent and deliberate about how we spend our ratepayers' dollars and provide a breakdown of local spend each month in our financial reporting at our council meetings. Through our capital program for the 2020-21 financial year, we again deal with two types of issues. The first is our ongoing base service level maintenance of our infrastructure and assets, which is very much driven by condition monitoring and life cycle management. The second is the program of strategic change, which takes a long-term approach to ensure the attractiveness and livability of our communities. This program looks at investment over a 10 to 20 year timeframe, and therefore we aren't always able to deliver something in every community in every year. The $22.43 million capital program this year will include 5 road projects and 4 bridge replacements or upgrades. Some of these projects are only possible due to confirmed match funding from the Australian Government, for which we are grateful. Our Vibrant and Active Towns and Villages program is a core focus of our corporate plan. The revitalised spaces already delivered in the Boonah Town Centre have been well received by the local community. The local artwork in the precinct helps relay stories about Boonah's Indigenous, agricultural and ecological past, present and aspirations for the future, and forms part of the wider heritage and public arts trail throughout the High Street precinct. Works are continuing and the project is expected to be completed by the end of the calendar year. After seeking community feedback, the Beaudesert Town Centre revitalisation project will begin this year, with initial work starting in Selwyn Street to improve traffic flow. The multi-year project will transform the heart of Beaudesert to provide our residents, businesses and visitors with a vibrant and active town centre. Work will also start on a business case to look at options for redeveloping Tambourine Mountains Gallery Walk, so that we can look to create a vibrant precinct with transformed streetscaping in line with the natural beauty of the rainforests and village character. The revitalisation of our public spaces across the region is key to enhancing economic growth, jobs creation and community vitality. Roadworks to enable safer access to the Beaudesert Business Park expansion project are underway. The expanded 11-hectare site will create opportunities for local businesses to retain and expand their capabilities and attract new industries to strengthen the local economy. We're expecting the lots to be on the market later this year. The project is proudly co-funded by the Queensland Government under the Building Our Regions Program Round 4 in association with us as the Council. As always, Council will balance economic growth with preserving the natural environment, with the Waters Creek Reserve remaining adjacent to the development. Councillors, in our proposed budget, we have struck a balance to ensure we continue to deliver pertinent services for all our communities, that we continue to deliver significant support initiatives for all our communities, that we continue to deliver strong infrastructure support for all our communities, and importantly, that we continue to support and renew economic growth, drive prosperity and employment generation to move forward strongly and together. In so doing, we have sought to minimise our revenue, soften and share the impact and contain our expenditure. With this budget, we are standing beside our community as one Scenic Rim. Together, we rise to these latest challenges and, as we have done before, to rise above them to be a stronger, more capable, more resilient and a more successful Scenic Rim. I commend the 2020-2021 Scenic Rim Regional Council budget to you. I'll now invite the CEO to share his thoughts pertaining to the budget.
Thank you and good morning, Mr Mayor, councillors, executive, officers and members of the public listening at home. All local governments must be efficient, effective, provide excellent service delivery, deliver value for money for ratepayers and continually improve. At the same time, councils are under pressure to meet the needs and expectations of the community and to provide better customer outcomes and improve services. This is against the backdrop of ever-increasing costs and the challenges such as councils raising only 3% of taxes but having to maintain 70% of roads and 35% of all infrastructure assets. At Scenic Rim, we are focused on delivering for our community with a great range of services. However, we have asked ourselves whether this is a shared view. As a council, we are challenged by an increased number and range of customer requests that we receive. In developing this fiscally responsible budget, councillors have had to balance the cost of delivering services against savings and the loss of services or levels of services. These are services that residents have come to expect and are the current implied base standards that residents are prepared to pay for. Councillors are also required by legislation to think beyond their own division for the good of the whole region. In addition, Council needs to commit to the Queensland Government's Shaping SEQ plan, which places growth demands upon Beaudesert and surrounds, which is set to become the main growth centre in the region over coming years. Scenic Rim Regional Council now faces new opportunities and challenges as our region continues its steady growth and is currently gripped by the COVID-19 impact, making this the most challenging of budgets, requiring us to balance long-term financial sustainability strategy forecasts for revenue against operational and capital expenditure requirements. We have maintained our workforce during COVID, as most of our employees deliver essential services to the community. Keeping jobs is a high priority, as these employees are mostly locals who proudly call this region home, and together with their families spend locally, boosting the local economy. On top of salaries and wages for our workforce, Council's annual average local spend is around 30% of expenditure, and we are working exceptionally hard to grow this through local procurement programs and initiatives. We consider this as a benchmark, and it compares very favourably to other councils. For transparency, we report monthly to Council and the community. As part of Council's economic stimulus package in response to COVID-19, we have also focused on expediting payments upon receipt of invoices to assist local businesses with cash flow. We are already seeing the benefit of this program through our engagement with local suppliers, making it easier to do business in the Scenic Rim and by giving cash flow certainty to those who supply Council. We have an inspired and passionate workforce of people who are keen to serve our community. We put our customers first and work hard to do more with less. For instance, our zero-based budgeting continues to be rolled out across the organisation, and the team actively interrogates each dollar spent and revenue earned. This program has provided savings of $640,000 during the past 2 years. In addition, last year we introduced novated leases for employee vehicles rather than providing council-owned vehicles. Approximately 22 employees now have a vehicle which they own or lease and are responsible for, reducing the size of council's fleet and delivering savings for ratepayers. This has reduced council's expenditure on fleet replacement, reduced maintenance and operational costs, provided additional support to local motor vehicle dealers, and reduced council's fringe benefit tax obligations, and in total has delivered $230,000 in ongoing savings in the budget. We have also been able to maintain a fair and equitable rating system, despite huge valuation impacts with rural and principal place of residence as the greatest segments contributing along with the commercial sector. Personally, Scenic Rim Regional Council is a wonderful organisation to lead, with the Mayor and councillors as the directors of the board and setting the strategic direction and making policy decisions. We couldn't achieve any of our service delivery without our great employees, led by the executive leadership team. This team comprises the following experienced and dedicated executive team members whose titles align with their portfolio delivery mandate. Caroline McMahon, the General Manager of People and Strategy, our newest member of the team, with an energised focus on our people through employee development and alignment against strategy and the community, corporate and operational plans. This inward-facing team assists our employees to grow and develop their careers through an enhanced human resources focus and commitment to their development, ensuring that our workforce is ready to meet the needs of today and into the future. Deborah Howe, the General Manager, Customer and Regional Prosperity, also brings an energised approach that provides dedicated focus on our customer through planning and development, community and cultural programs, media and communications, health and regulatory services, natural resource management and economic growth. The team within Deborah's portfolio are external facing and always exploring ways to be better, to be more efficient and to more productively meet the needs and expectations of our community in the delivery of our services. Deborah has been a key driver of our stronger focus on our customers and putting them at the heart of everything we do. Chris Gray, General Manager, Asset and Environmental Sustainability. With a renewed vigour and a more aligned workforce, this portfolio represents the largest sector of our workforce, with a mandate focused on our delivery of capital infrastructure and maintenance, along with asset planning and management. Chris's teams deliver essential services including road and bridge building and repairs, waste management operations, parks and landscape and cemeteries maintenance, as well as facilities and property management. In the 10 years post-amalgamation, figures indicate that Council underinvested in renewal compared to depreciation, and we are working hard to ensure that we invest well and deliver what we set out to achieve. Oliver Pring, the General Manager, Council Sustainability. This inward-facing team has a renewed focus on our assurance, ensuring that Council is sustainable into the future through leadership and management of Council finances, governance, technology and knowledge management. Ensuring that the Council remains sustainable requires a continuous improvement approach to everything that we do to add value for money. Oliver's team also oversee our whole of Council risk management, which assists us to prioritise our tasks. While all employees are accountable for their actions and responsible for compliance and governance, Oliver's teams provide expert advice in compliance and good governance in the delivery of our services. Under my leadership and that of the General Managers and broader management team, many team members far exceed the requirements of their position descriptions. The ownership and commitments made by our team members is extraordinary and impressive, and for this reason we should be very proud. Our team is always aiming for efficiency, effectiveness and agility, and this became even more evident in our response to bushfires, drought and now COVID-19. We identified that a fresh focus was needed on what we do, how we do it, and how timely we are in our responses, and importantly, how effective we are in meeting the needs and expectations of our customers. This was the genesis of our Refresh and Refocus program that commenced in late 2018. As we continue our Refresh and Refocus program into 2020-21, the alignment to the Scenic Rim community, corporate and operational plans is paramount. We have been busy rebuilding our organisation based on putting the customer first. developing our own people to be able to lead, working as one united team, and improving communication to all stakeholders, both internal and external. We're also putting in place more robust strategies, systems and processes, and taking a stronger approach to governance. The change is infectious, with employees taking pride in making a difference and delivering operationally for council and the community. Our customer centricity program has recently delivered our customer charter, which will be underpinned by a customer strategy and customer improvement plans. We are making huge inroads into developing seamless service delivery for customers to reduce unnecessary customer touch points for them, and look forward to continuously improving each and every day. As we deliver services under this year's budget, we will continue to live our values of respect, trust, honesty, teamwork, communications, quality, staff worth, and accountability. We are all honoured to deliver services in partnership with our communities across the Scenic Rim region. We are one Scenic Rim. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. We'll now turn our attention to comments from the councillors, and I'll invite the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Duncan McGuinness, to share some thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. My privilege to talk to this budget. I commend the budget to the group here. I think it's on balance is a very good budget. The overall rate rise is responsible. It's with a rate rise of 1%. I think it's in these times where you see the CPI for councils at 2.2%. It's quite responsible. It's with the community infrastructure going up by $50 and the rates on minimum rates going down by 50 has already been stated. I think that's a good area and a good thing to actually help the fluctuations in valuations that we see. It's probably been the toughest year, not only in council but outside of council for so many people this year, with droughts and fires and COVID. And there's businesses have been affected badly, and some residents have had their incomes drastically cut. And it's very hard for some people, while some have done well out of it. Unfortunately, there are a number of people who have had to struggle very much. I think it's important that we recognise what we've done here is drop our income a lot more than what it should have been, and this can't be maintained. And in our long-term forecast, we have to ensure that we actually make that back up along the way. And we've all seen councils around Queensland that have overspent for what the money they've had, and they've run into major problems. And I don't think anyone around this table wants to see us fall into that trap. So it's I think we have to be very aware of our longer term future. Taking a hit, let's say, for this year has to be made up at some time. My fear in some ways is, while there's a lot of grants from state and federal government at this point of time, and rightly so with the impact on people, some of those grants will be slowing down over the coming years, and we rely so heavily as a council on those, with less than 70% of our income coming from rates. The other has to be made up from somewhere else. I would like to think that, and I think it will happen in the short term, that other levels of government will keep going with their grants, but there will be an end come to that from their point of view. I think it's important that we also encourage businesses locally as much as possible. It's important that as many people are employed locally as possible, and if we can encourage businesses, and I think we have done that over the last number of years, to employ as many locals as possible. I think we have to continue to be frugal. especially in years like this, the expectations never diminish from our ratepayers. They would like more all the time, and it behoves us to be as efficient as possible in this organisation. And I think we have done that, and we have to continue to do that, just like any business if you're going to survive. Overall, I commend the budget to fellow councillors, and I will be voting for the budget. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll now go in divisional order. We'll invite Division 1 Councillor Derek Swanborough, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to acknowledge the speech that you gave in relation to the budget, and also the CEO. And yeah, we're all on the same page, and we're wanting to do the best thing for our communities. And I also want to commend the fellow councillors and colleagues for their input into the budget. It was a very robust 2 weeks, I think, in budget discussions, and there was a divergence of views right across, but I can honestly say that everybody had a contribution to make towards the outcome of the budget. But in saying that, Mr. Mayor, I've got to say that everybody brings to the table something different in their views about the world, informed by their experiences, their knowledge, their connection to their communities, by listening to what their communities are saying to them. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail today. I think there are some structural things that probably need to be looked at very carefully in the budget going forward. And as the Deputy Mayor has said, we're in very difficult times. The environment has changed, and there is an expectation that we have a lot of empathy with where we're headed in Australia and in the world, for that matter, into the future. And so we have to be very prudent. And there are certain principles that we should be sticking to, very well espoused in our community plan. And I would like to say that on balance, I've weighed up, the goods and the bad in the budget, and there's definitely good things and there's definitely bad things. But on balance, today I won't be voting for the budget because I believe that there are things that my community would be very disappointed in if I voted for the budget this time around. I hope that in future budgets that can change and there will be a different view. But as it stands at the moment, I'll be communicating with the public and certainly advising you the reasons for my decision.
Thank you, Councillor. Division 2 Councillor Jeff McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank all the fellow councillors and Mayor and executives for certainly a robust discussion in regards to the budget. It wasn't something that we came in, how much can we take from the ratepayer? It was very much this one, how much can we not take? What is the bare minimum that we can increase to maintain the level of service and the way forward for this council? We live in a rich and vibrant region in the southeast, very much separate from the Gold Coast, Logan and Ipswich, who have high density housing and very little of the rural lifestyle that we are privileged here in the Scenic Rim. We only live an hour from Brisbane, Gold Coast, Logan and Ipswich, but lead a very much different lifestyle. We've tried to provide a reasonable and fair increase of rates in this budget, which is extremely hard because unlike the other councils in the southeast, we do not have the high level commercial and industrial base that forms a lot of their rate revenue. We must in the future look at a strategic plan to open up Bromelton and Beaudesert to increase our rate revenue from a separate source other than residential and rural, to provide a fair and equal balance. And as we build that rate revenue out of commercial and industrial, we must then look at lowering the rate level for our residential and rural ratepayers. I will be voting for this budget because I think it is a fair and compromised budget that we all came up with during our discussions. Everyone had an input, everyone had their say, and we did not go up to 0.89%, we came down. We came down to the very bare minimum that required this council to operate and move forward. So I, for one, will be voting for this budget, and I thank all fellow councillors and the executive staff for these deliberations. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor for Division 3, Councillor Virginia West.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. And thank you for the opportunity to say a few words about the budget we have before us this morning. All budget deliberations are somewhat challenging, but this one would have to be the most memorable in my time as a councillor, as together our community have faced so much adversity over the past year, and of course the drought and COVID-19 are still with us. As a council, we have looked at multiple rating models over the past few weeks, at the same time being mindful of our diverse and widespread population, of our multiple towns, the important principle of maintaining rate relativity, and the responsibility we have to continue to build a strong and prosperous future for the Scenic Rim. This is a budget to aid recovery in our community and assist those residents who are facing financial challenges in a number of ways. And included in this budget are a number of COVID-19 economic assistance packages, which are really very relevant for today. This budget rate rise of 0.89% is lower than CPI, and CPI is currently 1.8%. In the world of local government, a rate rise of less than CPI is never generally recommended when council responsibilities are those for maintaining infrastructure and services which all come at increasing costs. However, this year is extraordinary, and together we need to continue to provide services to our community, continue to evaluate the delivery of these services, and to be mindful of the long-term vision of the community plan, which is underpinned by the operational and corporate plans. We do have a positive and prosperous future ahead of us in the Scenic Rim, and we need to work together, community and council, to optimise this outcome. In closing, I'd just like to acknowledge the executive team and all your officers who have put so much time and commitment into preparing this budget under extraordinary circumstances. Hence, I commend this budget and will be supporting its adoption this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll now turn to Division 4, Councillor Michael Limright.
Thank you, Mayor, fellow councillors, the CEO, general managers, staff, and most importantly, our residents listening at home. I'm very pleased to speak to this 2021 budget. While this represents my 5th council budget, it was perhaps the most challenging, due mostly to this moment in history that we are currently living. Throughout this process, my focus was clearly on addressing the current challenges while maintaining our vision for the future. For those who shared this room during these budget discussions, you will recall my regular comment that the decisions we make today will have long and lasting impacts on the region's future. I note a very pertinent paragraph in today's report that states, the underlying intent of this budget is to strengthen Council's financial position while delivering the capital works required to ensure that we can continue to deliver the services to the community at an acceptable level well into the future. The Scenic Rim region is unique as it is diverse. We are the envy of many for lots of reasons, including our location in southeast Queensland, our natural beauty, our productive agricultural areas, resilient economy, treasured lifestyle, valued communities, and our huge potential for growth. Ironically, there are equally as many challenges, in part due to our location in southeast Queensland, the cost of infrastructure to support our growing economy, and the threat to our treasured lifestyle with the likelihood of significant growth, especially in this Beaudesert corridor. However, I would much prefer to be dealing with the challenges of a growing region than dealing with the problems associated with a dwindling population and a shrinking economy. Scenic Rim region is unique in other reasons. Compared to similar sized regional councils, we have been limited in our ability to raise non-rates revenue, mostly through funding from the other levels of government. Ironically, in part, due to our location in southeast Queensland. So we are incredibly grateful to receive the increase in grant funding from both Queensland and the Australian government. Through respective stronger regions funding, the recent natural disaster funding packages and potential COVID stimulus initiatives. Overall, this budget is a responsible and relevant budget that recognises the current challenges in the region, provides increased support to our communities through many innovative and exciting initiatives, and provides the foundations to build the community infrastructure to cater for the future growth of our region. We have achieved this with a minimal increase in net rate revenue through a fair and equitable contribution across our region, including a significant number of residential ratepayers receiving a reduction in real terms. In closing, I would like to thank my fellow councillors for their perspectives and viewpoints, the Mayor for his leadership through this process, the CEO for his guidance and support, the 4 General Managers for their departmental input, and especially to the Council Sustainability team, led by Oliver, for their unwavering ability to produce yet another financial model to achieve this outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We turn to our last speaker today, Councillor for Division 5, Councillor Chalk, please.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors and executives. It's been an interesting journey coming through this last few weeks, deliberating the budget. There's been a lot of debate amongst councillors and executives, and it was a very good process. Through that process, it was great to learn of the challenges we face and the successes we've had, and I look forward to working hard into the future to guide us in the right direction. It was my priority when we started this process to lessen the impact on our ratepayers and our local businesses. It's been a very tough time over the last 3 years, especially with the drought, then the bushfires, and now the massive impact of COVID-19. So to keep the fees and charges and the rates at a minimum was a priority for me. To throw in the mix, the land valuations, especially with around the timing last October, was very challenging to lessen the impact on them properties that had seen massive increases in value. So I think this budget has addressed that ever so slightly. So I'll be voting for the budget today. I'll acknowledge that there's a lot more work to be done and into the future to balance our community's expectations with what this council provides. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I would just add, this is the first of an unusual budget. Normally it's been the Mayor's budget, so I would just like to add some personal comments as a footnote to those observations. Because earlier I have presented the budget on behalf of all councillors, but a personal perspective, councillors, I, like you, came to this budget with a number of outcomes that I was personally hopeful of delivering. However, based on our collective consideration, I am pleased to support the budget that we've arrived at. I'm also pleased that for the most part, councillors have shown the ability to step beyond their individual agendas and step up to the responsibility of acting on behalf of the collective Scenic Rim. I trust that our community can both recognise and respect this strategic leadership. The year has presented us with a historic mix of circumstances, and it would have been easy to take a non-strategic approach and deliver small outcomes. It's my belief that such an approach would have been bad for our region and only compounded some of the legacy issues we have begun to address. I believe in this budget we've got the balance right, and in so doing will provide a platform for our whole collective region to chart a fresh and invigorated future. In fact, a time to shine as one Scenic Rim. Thank you. We now turn to the matters before us to work through as resolutions today. For those who are listening in, perhaps haven't been involved in the budget process before, we have an extensive list of reports that contain matters pertaining to the proper completion and preparation of a budget. And some of them you might say are administrative, but the first item that we have before us is item 5.1, which is the operational plan, and it is a very important platform for the formulation of the budget. And I asked the General Manager to present that to us, please. Would you please, Caroline?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, councillors, executive, and members of the public listening at home. Today, I am proud to present Council's Operational Plan 2021. This plan demonstrates Council's understanding of community needs as documented in the Community Plan 2011 to 2026, with a clear commitment of the delivery of outcomes outlined in our corporate plan, Scenic Rim 2023. Sitting alongside of Council's daily service delivery, the Operational Plan 2020-21 presents key projects against Council's 7 strategic themes: spectacular scenery and healthy environment, sustainable and prosperous economy, open and responsive government, relaxed living and rural lifestyle, vibrant towns and villages, accessible and service regions, healthy, engaged and resourceful communities. I would like to acknowledge today the efforts of and contributions by officers across Scenic Rim Regional Council in bringing this operational plan together, in particular Nicole Stevens, the Corporate Strategy and Performance Officer, who has worked tirelessly to coordinate the information flow and strategic alignment of this plan. Councillors, this morning I'd like to draw your attention to some of the key projects deliverable within the 2020-21 operational year. This year will see the commencement of the development of the Growth Management Strategy, a ministerial condition for the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020. Finalisation of the Scenic Rim Climate Change Statement of Intent, following through on Council's clear commitment with the adoption of the Interim Statement of Intent in 2019-20. This year, Council moves into the second year of implementation of the Scenic Rim Regional Prosperity Strategy 2020 to 2025, including a range of tourism and economic recovery activities. Council will continue with the ongoing delivery of the popular Be Healthy and Active program, once again a 12-month program, the Youth Leadership program, and the delivery of a vibrant arts and cultural program across the region. 2020-21 will see a continued focus on community needs for infrastructure and ensuring the sustainable long-term management of Council's infrastructure to deliver appropriate service levels for our community. In closing, I present to you today the 2020-21 operational plan. This plan will be published on Council's website with some minor design amendments to that presented today, against which progress reports will be delivered quarterly. I recommend that, pursuant to Section 174 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council adopt the Operational Plan 2020-2021 as tabled and included in Attachment 1, and Council require quarterly updates from the Chief Executive Officer regarding the implementation of the Operational Plan for the 2020-2021 financial year. Thank you.
Thank you, GM. Councillors, any questions for clarification to the report? Councillor McConnell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On page 15, the first item, take actions to enable regional infrastructure to facilitate emerging economic opportunities. Could we get the top 5 projects that are listed in Activity 1?
Mayor, councillors and executive, thank you, Councillor McConnell, for that question. Rather than list the top 5 today, I will actually just broadly make a statement about the this particular plan initiative. It's basically put in place to understand council's role in the advocacy of with other levels of government around key infrastructure that will enable appropriate development. I will mention one key development area being the Brommelton State Development Area and our need to maintain our advocacy to ensure an appropriate transport link to the north, which is currently the Mount Lindsay Highway, that it actually provides an efficient and effective means of transport to deal with the needs of that development area. So I will refrain from going to the other 4 in the interests of time, but certainly will provide more detailed reports in the future.
Thank you. Just keeping on page 15 with the Economic Development Program, could I please ask for the actions in Activity 1 for the Prosperity Strategy?
GM, you're able to respond.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, Executive. Thank you for the question, Councillor. I think there may be a typo in that first line there because it's actually the Year 2 actions of the Economic Regional Prosperity Strategy, which is our guiding economic development plan. In the back section of that plan, there is a full action plan that outlines each year the actions that will be undertaken and also the ongoing business as usual activities that staff deliver. A couple of highlights though, to answer your question, is the continuation of the workforce development, which is one of the pillars within the strategy, is probably never more important than it is at this point in time, given the pressure that the region is under. The Regional Skills Investment Strategy implementation will continue as we work with business and industry across the region to ensure that this region has the appropriately skilled workforce to meet ongoing demand. One of the other actions they'll focus on in this term is the investment prospectus and the investment attraction activities to start to attract additional business and industry into key locations such as the Beaudesert Business Park and the Brommelton State Development Area, but also to work with our current business and industry to look at the retention and expansion of those operations. They'll also support the Vibrant and Active Towns and Villages program in conjunction with the Director of the Portfolio of Assets and Environmental Sustainability, because they're key economic hubs that require a cross-delivery for that program. They will continue to deliver the business and industry development activities in association with either Chambers of Commerce or other agencies in both the Queensland and Australian Government. And the other key one, which was just mentioned by my colleague Chris earlier, is we will continue to facilitate the strategic coordination group that we have formed with several state government agencies, such as the Department of Development, the Office of the Coordinator General, the Department of Main Roads, on the progress of the Brommelton State Development Area, which is a key industry opportunity for us around expansion and attraction of new business.
Thank you. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions to this report, councillors? If not, you have a recommendation in front of you. I seek a mover. Councillor Enright, seconder. Councillor McConnell, wishing to speak further. Councillor Enright.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a very important snapshot of the delivery of services that we are providing to our community for the ensuing year, and I congratulate Carolyn's team in bringing this together, but also to the CEO and his general managers for the delivery of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone wishing to speak against? Councillor Swamborough. It's back in the cradle.
Thank you. Look, it's all associated with the budget, so I've indicated that I wouldn't vote for the budget, and this is integral to the budget. Good things and bad things in here. I'm not proposing to go into them today, but as it's a integral part of the operational part of the budget, I won't be voting against this today.
Sorry, Councillor, just clarify that last statement. It had a double negative.
I said I'm speaking against the motion.
Right. I don't, any wish to reply? Anyone else seeking to speak for the motion first? And if not, wishing to reply? Okay, we put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Would you like that shown as a division? So that is Mayor plus divisions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favour, division 1 against. Move to item 5.2, and we turn to the GM of Council Sustainability to introduce the first of these items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, councillors and members of the public, fellow executive. Yes, busy day today. Following the adoption of the operational plan, I guess the budget now aims to provide the financing to deliver the strategic and business as usual aspects of council's operation. Item 5.2, differential rating categories, is the first of 17 key legislative requirements required to be decided by council in order to ultimately consider the proposed budget. This report, before council can levy differential rates, it must decide that the differential rating categories that forms the basis of our rates and charges categories. In all, there's a continuation of the 63 categories. So from the previous budget, there has been no change, and we maintain the 63 rateable categories within our region.
Okay, thank you for tabling that. And can I just, as a first question, before I open for others, in amongst those rateable categories, am I correct that there are a number that have no participation but are in fact in place to provide an indication for future development?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. There's a number of categories that remain empty, but we're legislatively required to maintain those in case there is a requirement for those to be instated. And it also allows the differentials between some of those categories to maintain the adequacy of the difference between them.
Thank you. Any other questions to this item? Any other comments? If not, we have a recommendation before us. That's a bit blurry at that. Do you want me to read your recommendation? Would you please read your recommendation?
I can read it, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation that council, for making and levying differential rates for the year ended 30 June 2021, decide different categories, each a rating category, of the rateable land in council's local government area, as stated in the rating category column of the table below, according to the corresponding stated descriptions in the descriptions of rating category column of the table in the table below, in accordance with section 81 of the Local Government Regulation 2012.
Thank you. I won't ask you to read through all of the line items in the column. I think for those who are interested in that, it is available as part of the reports that will be published from today, as well as usually a summary form comes out as part of rates notices. So I seek a mover. Councillor McGuinness, seconder. Councillor West, wishing to speak to this? No. Anyone seeking leave to speak against? We put the motion. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 5.3. That's page 39 in the reports, councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next section, 5.3, is a delegation of power to apply the rating categories. Just having established the rating categories, we now require council to decide, providing the delegation to the CEO to be able to appropriately apply the rate in the dollars delegate to the power of the CEO to identify and apply the appropriate rating category for each parcel of land within the Scenic Rim Regional Council.
Thank you. Any questions to the report? Comments to the report? I then seek a mover once we have the recommendation tabled, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that 1, council, having resolved to adopt the differential rating categories for the financial year 2020-21, resolve in accordance with section 257(1)(b) of the Local Government Act 2009, delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power under section 81(4) of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to identify in any way council considers appropriate the rating category to which each parcel of rateable land in council's local government area belongs. And 2, in accordance with section 257(1)(b) of the Local Government Act 2009, council delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power under section 81(4) of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to undertake an inspection and determination of primary use subsequent to an inspection, should there be any doubt about the primary use of the property.
I seek a mover. Councillor McConnell, seconder. Councillor McGuinness, wishing to speak. Anyone seeking leave to speak against? Not. We put the motion. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Again, thank you, councillors. We move to item 5.4 on page 42.
5.4, Mr. Mayor, is a differential rates, general rates 2020 to 2021. This report aims that, having established the rating categories council will apply in 2021, this report now applies the appropriate rate in the dollars, minimums and applicable capping for each category.
Councillors, again, any questions to the report? Any comments? Ask that you read out the recommendation, please.
The recommendation, Mr. Mayor, is that 1, in accordance with section 94(2) of the Local Government Act 2009 and sections 77 and 116 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, and having resolved to decide different rating categories, each a rating category, for rateable land in council's local government area under section 81 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council decide general rates as differential general rates as a rate in the dollar for each rating category, and to set the minimum rates and limitations on increase of rates from that levied in the previous financial year, cap on increase as per the table provided in attachment 1, and 2, that council resolves to levy rates by a single rate in a dollar for each category with a set minimum for each such rating category.
I seek a mover. Councillor West, seconder. Councillor Enright, wishing to speak further? Anyone seeking leave to speak against? No. We put the motion. Those favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 5.5.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 5.5 is titled Separate Rates and Charges. This report aims for councillors to consider applying the consideration of community infrastructure charge as a separate charge. The funds levied from this such charge will either fund all or part of costs associated with road and bridge infrastructure maintenance.
Councillors, any questions to the report? Any comments? I'll ask you to read the recommendation.
The recommendation, Mr. Mayor, is that in accordance with Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2009 and Section 103 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council resolves to levy the community infrastructure charge of $372 on all rateable assessments within the Scenic Rim Regional Council, Scenic Rim Region.
Thank you. I have a mover, please. Councillor McGuinness, seconded Councillor Chalk. Wishing to speak further? Councillor McGuinness? Anyone seeking leave to speak against? If not, we put the motion. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 5.6.
5.6, Mr. Mayor, this is one of two Rural Fire Brigade special charge. We levy this charge on behalf of the Boonah Rural Fire Brigade, and it's to assist the Boonah Rural Fire Brigade in financing their overall plan for the year. This has been in consultation with both the rural fire groups, by council providing the applicable properties within each area, and the Rural Fire Brigade establishing a set charge for those each areas to be able to contribute towards their overall plan. The Boonah Rural Fire Brigade has indicated a charge of $12.50 for all the properties within the Boonah Rural Fire Brigade catchment that they provide.
Thank you. Any questions to the report? Any comments to the report? GM, I'll ask you to read the resolution, and with your forbearance, councillors, once we move into the components of the plan, perhaps we'll satisfy ourselves with just the headings of those components, please, rather than the whole detail.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that in accordance with Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2009 and Section 94(3) and 4 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council adopt the overall plan for Boonah Rural Fire Brigade in the Scenic Rim Region. The overall plan for the Boonah Rural Fire Brigade in the Scenic Rim Region comprises of the description of the service facility of activity, the rateable land to which the special charge applies, the special charge for 2021 being $12.50, the estimated cost of carrying out the overall plan of $41,562.50, and the estimated time for carrying out the overall plan, which is the 1 year for the financial year.
I'll just put a point of clarification to that comment. I believe the estimated overall cost is $56,932.52, but the contributions to be raised via this special charge is $41,562.50. Would that be correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
Thank you.
The indication from the group is that they will cover the shortfalls.
I'm just conscious that there are a number of people listening. Important to have that clarity. Now, seeker mover, Councillor Chalk, seconder, Councillor McConnell, wishing to speak to anyone seeking leave to speak against? If not, we put the motion. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 5.7.
5.7, Mr Mayor, as before, is the Bow Desert Rural Fire Brigade special charge. Similarly with the information provided before, this is a special charge that's to be levied for the properties within the catchment area of the Bow Desert Rural Fire Brigade. The charge will be $33 per rateable property.
Any questions to the report? Any comments to the report? Councillor McConnell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say as a committee member for the Bow Desert Rural Fire Brigade group that they do, again, use a bare minimum, that they need to ask the ratepayer for their contribution to enable these very dedicated volunteers to be able to do the work they did, especially after the last season with Canungra and then out at Carney's Creek. So I do want to assure the residents that this amount is bare minimum that is required to assist this group to be able to facilitate the work that they do. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Would you, similar to the protocol for the previous recommendation, GM, if you could read the summary at the top and then the headings, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The recommendation is that in accordance with Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2009 and Section 94(3) and 4 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council adopt the following overall plan for the Bow Desert Rural Fire Brigade in the Scenic Rim region. The overall plan for the Bow Desert Rural Fire Brigade in the Scenic Rim region comprises of the description of service, facility, or activity, the rateable land to which the special charge applies, the special charge for 2020 and 21 being $33 for each rateable land, and the estimated cost of carrying the overall plan, which amounts, the overall plan is $186,938.95, with expected revenue from this special charge being $124,542. And also the estimated time for carrying out the overall plan being the financial year 2020-21.
Thank you, councillor. I seek a mover, Councillor McConnell, seconder. Councillor Enright, wishing to speak further, councillor. Anyone seeking leave to speak against? If not, we put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. We move to item 5.8.
5.8, Mr Mayor, is the council considering setting the waste utility charges for 2020-21.
Councillors, any questions to the report? Any comments to the report? I'll ask then the GM to read the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The recommendation is that, 1, in accordance with Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2009 and Sections 99 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council make and levy waste management utility charges for the supply of waste management services for 2020-21 financial year as per the rates provided in this report, and 2, that in accordance with Local Law Number 5, Waste Management 2018, Council designate all premises within the Scenic Rim Regional Council boundaries as areas in which Council may conduct general waste collection. Services shall be provided to all premises within the Council area where waste services are or can be made available.
Seek a mover. Sorry. Councillor West, seconder. Councillor Chalk, wishing to speak.
No, thank you.
Anyone seeking leave to speak against? If not, we put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Again, thank you, councillors. We move to item 5.9.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 5.9 is one of the many policies that we are tabling today. This policy relates to the rates discount policy, FI 02.01 CP. This policy outlines councils setting a rates discount policy, and the intent of the discount is to encourage the prompt payment of rates and charges in order to move and improve council cash flows and minimise the extent of subsequent recovery action. But it also allows the ability for those to avail it to a 5% discount on the general rates.
Thank you, councillors. Do we have any questions to the report? Any comments to the report? Ask GM to read the recommendation.
The recommendation, Mr. Mayor, is that council adopt the revised rates discount policy, FI 02.01 CP, as provided in attachment 1.
Seeker mover. Councillor McGuinness, seconded. Councillor Enright, wishing to speak further? Anyone seeking leave, speak against? Not, we put the motion. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. We move to item 5.10.
5.10, Mayor and Councillors, is the fees and charges for 2020-21. The deliberations around the fees and charges has been robust and have come back a number of times for further clarification and further adjustment. The attached fees and charges schedule provide a reflection of those deliberations.
Any questions to this report, councillors? Any additional comments to the report? Not, I'll ask the GM to read the recommendation, please.
The recommendation is that, 1, pursuant to sections 97(1) and 262(3)(c) of the Local Government Act 2009, Council adopt the 2020-21 Register of Fees and Charges contained at attachment 1, and 2, that the attached report be made public following the council discussion and adoption.
Seeker mover. Councillor Enright, seconded. Councillor McConnell, wishing to speak further? Anyone seeking leave to speak against? Not, we put the motion. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 5.11.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 5.11 is on page 151 of 252. I'll just wait for those to... relates to the rates category changes policy, FI 02.02 CP. This policy is required, Mr. Mayor, on the basis that due to the increasing frequency of rating category changes between principal place of residence and non-principal place of residence, this policy guides officers in determining the eligibility and applicability of those changes and applying the changes accordingly.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions to the report? Any comments to the report? Ask the GM to read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that Council adopt a council policy rate category changes FI 02.02 CP.
Seeker mover. Councillor McGuinness, seconder. Councillor Chalk, wishing to speak further? Councillor? Anyone seeking a leave to speak against? If not, we put the motion. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. We move to item 5.12.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 5.12, concessions to rates and charges. This sets out the resolve on the application of concessions as contained in Council's revenue policy and revenue statements.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions to this report? Any comments to this report? GM, I'll ask you to grab a mouthful of water perhaps and read this, I think this does need, unfortunately, to be read in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation for 5.12, concessions to rates and charges, is that Council adopt the following recommendations. 1. In accordance with Section 120 and 122 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, upon application, Council will grant eligible ratepayers full rebate of the general rate, separate charge and a waste disposal utility charge to the following classes: not-for-profit organisations, not-for-profit community service providers, sporting organisations operating on council-owned or controlled lands. 2, that in accordance with sections 120 and 122 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, upon application, Council will grant eligible ratepayers full rebate of the general rate, separate charge and a waste disposal utility charge to the following classes: dip and pump sites held separately from the balance of holdings or held separately by trustees, land identified as historic subdivisions under the Boonah Shire Planning Scheme, effective 31st of March 2006. 3, that in accordance with sections 120 and 122 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, upon application, Council will grant eligible ratepayers a rebate of whichever is the less of $100 per annum and 10% of the gross rates and charges levied to the eligible classes of ratepayers, being property owned and occupied by totally and permanently incapacitated TPI veterans holding a valid TPI gold card. And 4, in accordance with sections 121E and 122(1)B of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council will grant a partial rebate of the general rate to the landowners who have entered into a voluntary conservation covenant registered under Section 97A of the Land Title Act 1994 with Council, or an unregistered voluntary conservation agreement with Council to preserve, restore or maintain an area of environmental or scientific significance upon their rateable land, namely vegetation communities having levels of significance detailed below. The rebate will be a pro rata percentage of the general rate attributable to the conservation area of the land.
Councillors, I seek a mover.
Mr. Mayor, just a question if I can.
Sorry, Councillor, we've passed that point. We're at the point the recommendation's tabled. What's the question?
The question was just in relation to the definition of an organisation which is not for profit, just if the General Manager can explain how that's determined.
I'll allow it, even though that was the time before, Councillor.
We do have a policy on a not-for-profit, which we can go into another time, Mr. Mayor.
But just to close that out, it would be fair to say that it's not something we create lightly. It's something that follows a standard protocol for that description in the community.
That's correct. There's a criteria that they need to fulfil.
Yep. Okay. Now I seek a mover. Councillor Enright, seconder Councillor McConnell, wishing to speak. Anyone seeking leave to speak against? If not, we put the motion. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 5.13.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 5.13 is the financial hardship policy FI 02.05 CP. This policy allows or provides for those experiencing financial hardship due to a varying number of circumstances as contained in the policy to, on application, apply to council towards consideration for some financial hardship relief. The policy has been amended this year to incorporate exceptional circumstances, whereby resolution by council is required to define those exceptional circumstances.
Thank you. Any questions to the report, councillors? Any comments to the report, councillors? For those listening, it is worth noting that in the ordinary meeting which follows later today, there will be some matters that build from this policy. Ask you to read the resolution, the recommendation, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The recommendation is that pursuant to sections 119 and 120 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council adopt the Financial Hardship Policy FI 02.05 CP.
Seeker mover. Councillor McConnell, seconder. Councillor West, wishing to speak further? Anyone seeking leave to speak against? If not, we put the motion. Those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to the following item, 514.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 514 is the Rates-Based Financial Assistance Policy FI 02.04 CP. This really follows in line with the concessions provided to the same groups, probably just a numbering issue, but this policy provides the guidance around officers in providing those concessions that was stated before.
Again, councillors, any questions to the report? Any comments to the report? Please read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that pursuant to sections 119 and 120 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council adopt the revised rates-based financial assistance policy FI 02.04 CP.
Thank you. Seeker mover. Councillor Chalk, seconded. Councillor McGuinness, wishing to speak. Anyone seeking leave to speak against? If not, we put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you, councillors. That's unanimous. We move to item 515.
515, Mr. Mayor, is the administration of rates and charges. This report provides the guidance to officers in terms of how the administration of rates and charges are facilitated, including the issuing of rates notices, the number of days payable after rates notice has been issued, also the interest rates applicable on outstanding rates balances, and also provides the discount and recovery of overdue rates procedure.
Councillors, again, any questions to the report? Any comments to the report? Then I'll ask the GM to read the recommendation, please.
The recommendation, Mr. Mayor, is that Council resolve to administer its systems of rates and charges as follows. 1. To levy rates and charges in the Scenic Rim region in accordance with Section 104 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 by the issuance of rates notices biannually. 2. In accordance with Section 118 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to require rates and charges to be paid within 31 days after rates notice for the rates and charges is issued, due date for payment. 3. That in accordance with Section 133 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to levy an interest on rates and charges that are not paid by the due date for payment stated in the rates notice at a rate of 8.53% per annum, calculated on a monthly rest and as compounding interest. 4. That in accordance with Section 130 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to allow a discount for payment of general rates on or before the relevant due date for payment of 5% of the rates otherwise payable, only applicable if all charges on accounts are paid. And 5, to adopt the recovery of overdue rates and charges procedure FI 02.06 PR02 as per attachment 1.
Councillor, is a seeker mover? Councillor Enright, seconded. Councillor Chalk, wishing to speak further, seeking leave to speak against? We put the motion. That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 5.16.
5.16, Mr Mayor, is the investment policy FI01.10CP. This policy dictates how council invests its surplus funds and to what parameters. Key aspects of this, as outlined in the policy, is that funds must not exceed 1 year in maximum in terms of deposit rates, and also outlines the percentage breakdown depending on the credit rating of the institution.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions to the report? Any comments to the report? I'll ask GM to read the recommendation, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The recommendation is that in accordance with section 191 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council adopt the 2020-21 investment policy FI01.10CP.
Seeker mover, Councillor McGuinness, seconded. Councillor McConnell, wishing to speak further? Anyone seeking leave to speak against? Not. We put the motion. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 5.17.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 5.17 is the debt policy FI01.14CP. Similarly, with the investment policy, the debt policy outlines the parameters around council will use borrowings as a means to finance council operations. The key aspect is that borrowings are only utilised to fund capital infrastructure works and not operating expenses. The attachment outlines the proposed borrowings for the year, which has already been mentioned, the $1.5 million for the Lupton Street purchase, and any outstanding rates, that any outstanding loans, and also proposed loans as per our long-term financial plans.
Any questions to the report? Any comments to the report? Councillor Swanbury.
Yes, Mr Mayor. Whilst the policy has some good generic processes in place in relation to borrowing for capital items rather than operational items, it also contains a decision that council is making to borrow money, and so in that regard I'll vote against this motion.
Thank you, councillor. Anyone else wishing to make a comment? If not, we'll ask for GM to read the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The recommendation is that in accordance with section 192 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council adopt the 2020-21 debt policy FI01.14CP.
Seeker mover, Councillor Enright, seconder. Councillor West, wishing to speak further, councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I certainly support this policy for this particular debt of 1.5 million. This is really about providing community infrastructure for our growing community in Beaudesert and the wider Scenic Rim, and I think it shows what I highlighted in my speech this morning, is that we need to be thinking about the requirements for the future and the opportunities to borrow at very low interest rates currently. Also provides the opportunity for the cost of this infrastructure to be shared amongst our communities in the future, and very sound financial practice. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Anyone wishing to speak against? If not, we'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Declare that, note that as a division. That's the Mayor, Division 2, Division 3, Division 4, Division 5, Division 6 in favour, Division 1 against. Move to item 518.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 518 is the Revenue Policy FI 01.03 CP. The Revenue Policy, it allows council to comply with requirements under the Local Government Act. It sets out the core principles to which council will apply during the 2020-21 financial year for the levying of rates and charges, granting the concessions for rates and charges, the recovery of undue unpaid rates and charges, and the cost recovery fees and methods. It also outlines the purpose of concessions, and it applies to the revenue raised by rates, utility charges, and the fees and charges.
Thank you. Any questions to the report, councillors? Any comments to the report? If not, ask you to read the recommendation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that pursuant to sections 169(2)(c) and 193 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, council adopt the Revenue Policy FI 01.03 CP.
Seeker mover, Councillor McConnell. Seconder, Councillor McGuinness. Wishing to speak further? Anyone seeking leave to speak against? If not, we put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 519.
Thank you, Mayor. 519 is the last item in today's special budget meeting. It's the Budget 2020-21 and long-term financial forecasts for 2021 to 29-30 financial years. This report contains the basis for which the latest financial statements were generated, utilising the March 2020 budget review, as well as the budgeted financial statements from 2020-21 to 22-23, along with the long-term financial forecasts for 2020-21 to 29-30. It also outlines or contains the 2020-21 revenue statement, which caters for and provides all the parameters that which we have just previously gone through and resolved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions to the report? Any comments to the report? Okay, I'll ask you then, GM, to read the recommendation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that council adopt 1, pursuant to section 205 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the statement of financial operations and financial position of the council in respect to the previous financial year, the statement of estimated financial position be received and its contents noted for the period ended 30 June 2020. 2, pursuant to section 107A of the Local Government Act 2009 and sections 169 and 170 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the budgeted financial statements for the financial years 2020-21, 21-22 and 22-23 as tabled. Pursuant to sections 169 and 171 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the long-term financial forecast for 2021 to 29-30 as tabled. 4, pursuant to sections 169(2) and 172 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the revenue statement 2021 as tabled. And 5, pursuant to section 47 of the Local Government Act 2009 and Chapter 3, Part 2, Division 5 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to apply the Code of Competitive Conduct for 2021 financial year to the following business activities: roads, building certifying, waste collection. Business activity definitions: roads, the business activity operates as an external competitive contractor for roads maintenance and construction. The business activity excludes normal ownership of the roads assets. Building certifying is a business activity involves building certification services provided to external customers. It excludes regulatory aspects of the function. Waste collection, this business activity comprises all aspects of the provision and charging for refuse collection and its disposal, including management of the refuse collection contract. Estimated activity statements, 2021 full cost pricing budgets for each business activity are included in the estimated activity statements included in the budgeted financial statements as contained in attachment 2.
Thank you. I seek a mover. Councillor Enright, seconder. Councillor West, wishing to speak further, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor, fellow councillors. As we've outlined through the process this morning, I think we've all almost agreed that this is a very relevant and responsible budget, factoring in the challenges of our region, but giving due consideration for the future demands of our region, and I commend it. Thank you.
Anyone wishing to speak against the motion? Councillor Swanborough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I've outlined my intention to not vote for the budget, and this is the critical part. I'm not going to go into all the details here, but yeah, I will be voting against this budget with that contains all the long-term revenue and the long-term expenditures listed for council, which, in my view, is probably not sustainable for the region. So that's why I won't be voting for it.
Okay, thank you. Wishing to, anyone else wishing to speak for the motion? Wishing the right to reply? Okay, we put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Noted as division, Mayor, Division 2, Division 3, Division 4, Division 5, Division 6 in favour, Division 1 against. Councillors, thank you for your attention. It's been a very extended budget preparation process, but certainly today's been a busy meeting, and I'll declare the meeting closed, noting for those who are listening that the ordinary meeting will follow in about 15 minutes at 11 o'clock as a separate broadcast.
And through you, Mayor, may I just remind everybody online and listening in that the community budget report will be made available on our website this morning.
Thank you.